Hello and welcome to Twin Talk. This is Angie and I'm here with my sister Joy. For the record, we are at her house on a Saturday night. It's cold and drizzly outside, but it's okay. We've got a really good book to talk about. It's called Atomic Habits, and it's an easy and proven way to build good habits and break bad ones by James Clear. It was a #1 New York Times bestseller, and there were over 1 million copies sold. It was written in 2018, and if you want to listen to an Audible, it is 5 hours and 35 minutes, so it's really not that long at all. And it was given a 4.8 stars in the Audible app, and it's also considered an Audible top listen, which is saying a lot if you ask me, and it has over 140,000 reviews. So just to begin, I loved the book. But I gotta tell you, I'm a sucker for self-help books. If it's anything that I think's gonna help me in some way improve my life, I'm there, right? Especially this one. So I'm gonna real quickly just touch on the author because it's really important that you understand who he is and his life experiences because that's the whole reason this book was even written. Or at least in my opinion, I think it played a big part, his background did. So he starts the book off and he's talking about his high school years. So during the last day of his sophomore year in high school, he says he was hit in the face with a baseball bat. He said it resulted in a broken nose, he had multiple skull fractures, and he had 2 shattered eye sockets. They rushed him to the hospital, and once he got to the hospital, he had a seizure, he quit breathing. He was then given oxygen, he was flown in a helicopter to a hospital in Cincinnati, and he says once he got to the hospital, he was placed on a ventilator and he was put into a medically induced coma. He mercifully survived the incident, but he said it took 8 months before his life returned to some type of normal. And so, anyway, a tragic, major trauma in his life. But he said baseball had always been his life and he dreamed of playing in the major leagues, but when the season returned the next year, he was the only junior to be cut from the varsity baseball team.
Oh.
And yeah, he went on to say that he was sent down to play with the sophomores on the junior varsity, and he said, and I quote, he says, as someone who had spent so much time and effort on the sport, getting cut was humiliating. And after getting cut, he sat in his car and he cried.
Aww.
And then he said he made varsity his senior year, but he only played a total of 11 innings the whole season.
That's frustrating.
Very frustrating. So even though his high school career was not what he had envisioned, he says he never gave up on his dream, and he enrolled in college at Denison University. He said if he knew if he were to have any shot of playing baseball, it was going to be totally up to him. And it was here that he discovered the surprising power of small habits. So, what a story, first of all.
Mm-hmm.
She talks about how he started doing these small habits in college that helped him succeed. Do you remember any of the things he did?
I just remember he was very disciplined and he was doing things that other students were not, and it paid off for him in the end. Wasn't he extra diligent in the weight room?
Yes, yeah. He said he started lifting weights like routinely, every week he would lift weights 3 to 4 times a week. He said he went to bed early. He said, I kept my dorm room clean. He said, I improved my study habits. He was doing all these things.
He sounded very disciplined, which is hard to do.
Yes. And yeah, he was basically said he was doing things that most college kids weren't. He was being disciplined. So I'm just curious before we get into the book, do you have any bad habits, Joy, that you would want to share with everyone?
Probably too many to count, but I feel like sleeping in the morning is a bad habit. I know I need to be up by 6, but I hit my snooze button 2 or 3 times and it's 6:30 or 6:35 before I get up, which leads to me being stressed from the moment go because I'm rushing around, I'm helping my daughter, I'm trying to get my dog fed. I mean, and my husband's helping me, don't get me wrong, he's a big help in the morning, but just even that 30 minutes starts my day off on a bad start, and it's almost every single morning. I don't make up my bed. I could go on and on. I have a million bad habits. Okay, let's hear the dirt on you.
Okay, so I was just getting ready to say, so if if this book was going to help you in any way, that would be the things you would want to correct.
Yes. Yes.
Well, before we go to me, do you have any good habits? I'm just curious.
This is so sad to say. I cannot think of one good habit I have.
Oh, that can't be true. Oh.
Like,
Okay. Trust me, I have plenty of bad habits, but here lately, the one thing I've been doing that I feel like's putting me on the right path is I have a little to-do list, and it's just very simple. And every day it's do my devotional, clean my kitchen, do a load of laundry, and declutter and clean my house for 30 minutes. It's just that simple.
does the 30
And
minutes cover all of that?
no, but you would be surprised how much I get done in the 30 minutes, and it keeps me, as long as my kitchen is staying clean and my laundry is being done, the 30 minutes pretty much takes care of just about whatever needs to be done. Well, God, let's get on with the book. So I would like you to read page 6. So we just talked about how James Clear, the author, how he started establishing these habits in college, and I'm going to have Joy read the results of the success he had just by starting these good habits.
Okay, when my sophomore season arrived, I earned a starting role on the pitching staff. By my junior year, I was voted team captain at the end of the season. I was selected for the all-conference team, but it was not until my senior season that my sleep habits, study habits, and strength training habits really began to pay off. 6 years after I had been hit in the face with a baseball bat, flown to the hospital, and placed into a coma, I was selected as the top male athlete at Denison University and named the ESPN Academic All-America Team, an honor given to just 33 players across the country. By the time I graduated, I was listed in the school record books in 8 different categories. That's amazing. That same year, I was awarded the university's highest academic honor, the President's Medal. I hope you'll forgive me if this sounds boastful. To be honest, there was nothing legendary or historic about my athletic career. I never ended up playing professionally. However, looking back on those years, I believe I accomplished something just as rare. I fulfilled my potential, and I believe the concepts in this book can help you fulfill your potential as well.
Yeah, I just thought, you always read these books and you think, what are their credentials and what makes them the authority? But when you have a
And
success,
should I listen to this person?
right, he is living proof that just those small habits he established, and you just read everything that he accomplished. And like he said, no, he didn't go on to play major baseball, and like that was his dream to play professionally. But you know what? He said the key thing in that paragraph was, I fulfilled my potential.
I love that. And to me, it is extraordinary what he achieved, knowing what he had been through. Hey, I just remembered one good habit I have.
What's that?
I have to share it because I don't want to be a total loser. So I do teach Spanish. I'm a language teacher, so I'm always trying to grow and learn Spanish. I do a lesson on Duolingo every single day.
Oh, that's good.
I just hit me, and I'm at 556 day streak.
Oh,
So
over a year.
yes.
Well, that's awesome.
So my point here is, how could I have forgotten that? So even though it only, that's a pretty big deal.
Yes, especially if you've been doing it for 5 or something days and you forgot to read it.
So 556 day streak, which is pretty good,
By
for
the
me.
way, I forgot to do something. I've been doing it for almost 2 years.
Yes,
now.
I think it's such a habit that I don't even think about it.
Right. Okay, let me ask you this. Has it helped you?
Oh my goodness, yes. And I think that's going to kind of put this book in a nutshell. Even though I'm only doing a 5-minute lesson a day, little increments, little things add up to big things. And I've learned so much just that 5-minute lesson a day. And sometimes I do more if I have more time, but I can't believe I forgot about that. So I do have at least one good
That
habit.
is a good
I
habit.
do try to
And that's
learn
doing
Spanish every day.
Duolingo. Okay, we can do a little plug for Duolingo.
Yeah,
All right,
Duolingo.
All right. Okay, so just a little bit more about the author after his college career and to show you where he's at now. In 2012, James Clear began publishing articles about his experiments with habits, and by 2014, he had over 100,000 subscribers to his newsletter. He was now becoming known as an expert on habits. In 2015, he signed a book deal to write the book that you and I are discussing now. and his articles began to appear regularly in major publications like Time and Forbes magazine, and he was asked to speak for large corporations to their employees about habits and behavior change. Then in 2017, he launched the Habits Academy, where Fortune 500 companies began enrolling their staff and leaders, and over 10,000 people have graduated from the Habits Academy. In 2018, as he was finishing up this book, his website, jamesclear.com, was receiving millions of visitors per month, and he now has nearly 500,000 subscribers to his weekly newsletter.
Wow.
So, and you may be thinking, why are you telling me all this? Our listeners might be thinking this. It's more proof. He talks about in his book how he established habits about writing for his newsletters and getting on his every day. He would be like, okay, today I'm going to send out so many emails. I'm going to write for so long today. I'm going to publish this many articles this month. So even his success and just his writing about habits has been so successful because he was so disciplined in his habits. Does that make sense?
Yes.
In his habits of,
So even his habits have contributed to his great success.
Yes, of getting his information out to the public. So I just spent a lot of time on the introduction and the author because I want you guys to understand exactly who James Clear is, where he came from, and why he is where he is now. And it sounds like a commercial, but I was just wanting to say his methods have worked for thousands of people and they can work for you too. I sound like I'm plugging him, but I do truly believe that after reading this book. I really believe this is one of those books that if you read it and put his methods into action, I do truly believe it can be life-changing. And here is a sneak peek into some of the chapters just to whet your appetite. I can't talk tonight. Okay, in chapter 1, he talks about the problem with goals. I thought this was so interesting.
I did too.
He says goals are at odds with long-term progress. And you're thinking, what? And he says, if you want better results, forget about setting goals. Focus on your system instead. You do not rise to the level of your goals, but you fall to the level of your system.
Yeah, this seemed counterintuitive, but once he explained it, it makes sense.
Yeah, like Joy and I was discussing this before the podcast, and I was like, do you really understand what he means by that? And it brought back to mind when my son was playing baseball. Their baseball coaches would preach and preach to them. They would say, don't focus on winning this tournament or winning the conference championship or whatever. They said, focus on the process. They said, come to practice every day. Focus on the fundamentals on the process. I said, as long as you're taking care of business and what you're supposed to be doing on a daily basis, the results will take care of themselves. And that's kind of the same thing he's saying here. Anything you want to add to that?
No, it like I said, when I first heard it, I thought that doesn't make sense. But once he explained it,
because you're like, everybody sets goals.
Yeah, if your goal is just on that championship, but you don't have the fundamentals down, or you're not practicing the basics every day, you're never going to get to that championship.
Yeah, and he makes the comment in his book. He says, every team let's just say every team that's in the NBA, he said, yeah, they all want to win that championship game. He said they all have the goal to win games. He said, but if you're not focusing on the process and what it takes to win the game, it doesn't matter what goals you have in place. So.
Right.
All right. So he claims there are 4 laws of behavior change and when you're trying to create good habits. So one of the first things he says, and this is pretty funny, but he says, make it obvious. Being aware of good and bad habits. This is kind of funny. I'm going to have her read this little paragraph on page 66. It's just one paragraph.
The first step to changing bad habits is to be on the lookout for them. If you feel like you need extra help, then you can try pointing and calling in your own life. Say out loud the action that you are thinking of taking and what the outcome will be. If you want to cut back on your junk food habit, but notice yourself grabbing another cookie, say out loud, that's funny because I just ate 2 sugar cookies. Right. I'm about to eat this cookie, but I don't eat it. Eating it will cause me to gain weight and hurt my health. Hearing your bad habits spoken aloud makes the consequences seem more real.
Yeah, so I hope you guys caught that are listening to this. Joy, what she was just read, he was literally saying, like, when you see yourself getting ready to do a bad habit, like eating a cookie that you don't need, he was saying, you literally say out loud, that's a cookie. That is fattening. I don't need that cookie. It will not help me reach my goals. Or is that kind of
Yeah.
what he said? I've already forgotten what you just read, but anyway. All right, number 2, he says, make it attractive. The more attractive an opportunity is, the more likely it is to become habit forming. Well, that's kind of a no-brainer, right?
Mm-hmm.
He says, join a culture where your desired behavior is the normal behavior, and do something you enjoy immediately before a difficult habit. Have you ever done that, Joy? Do something immediate. Do something you enjoy before you have to do a bad.
Because I would think of it as after, as a reward.
Me too. I was the same way.
So I need an example here.
I kind of look at it as like, oh, I really don't want to clean my shower today. But okay, Angie, if you clean the shower today, when you get done, you can spend 30 minutes watching an episode of something on Netflix.
Right. But it says do something you enjoy doing immediately before a difficult habit.
To say,
so you mean you've got to
watch
Netflix and then go clean your shower?
I kind of disagree with him on that. I feel like if you do it before, who's to say you're actually going to go do the thing that you don't want to do?
Once I'm down to watch that Netflix, I'm not getting back up. I don't get that one.
I don't either. I may even have to go back and read that chapter.
Yeah.
That's a little confusing. Okay, then he says, make it easy. Create an environment where doing the right thing is as easy as possible. We naturally gravitate toward the option that requires the least amount of work.
Yeah, I think that's why I can't get to the clutter in every corner of my bedroom, because it takes work to lift everything out of the corner.
Yes.
And go through it.
Yeah. Then he says, number 4, make it satisfying. We are more likely to repeat a behavior when the experience is satisfying. Yeah.
How's cleaning a bathtub ever going to be satisfying to me?
Well, but we're talking about habits here. That's just something that's just like a task that has to be done.
No, but how do I get in the habit of cleaning my bathtub?
Oh, I see. Well, like you said, you got to make it rewarding. So turn on some music. Yeah, there's no way you can make cleaning a bathtub.
I don't see how making cleaning a toilet, because that's one of my things. I want to be in the habit of having a clean bathroom every week. I don't know. What's his name again?
James Clear.
I know you'll never listen to this, James Clear, but we need to know how to be motivated to clean a toilet and a bathtub. We both hate cleaning our.
You know what I think he would say? That this just popped in my head.
What?
I think he would say something like, "Okay, every time you get out of the shower." Have a spray that's literally sitting right there, and an old rag, and just
sponge,
and wipe it down every time. And then it's not hard because it's already clean at the moment,
and I'm already wet, and I'm already in the shower.
Wet, and then by the end of the, and there's never going to be a time that it's going to be difficult to clean because you're cleaning it every day.
Thank you for channeling James Clear. I think you're right. I think that's exactly what he would say.
I'm just guessing.
No, I think you're right.
I think he would easy.
You're right. Make it easy. And this is what's sad is I do have a cleaner right there. I do have a sponge in there, and I do that every once in a while.
Right. And that's what I tell my kids.
So I just need to make it a habit. Right before I get out of the shower, I'm going to spray it, wipe it down, and be done.
Yeah, because I tell my daughter all the time she hates cleaning her bathtub, and I tell them all the time, if you'll do it at least once a week, at least. I said it won't be so hard, because by the time we get to it, it's like, okay, which you got to get through 3 layers.
Exactly.
Okay, then he talks about how to break bad habits, and I'm just going to briefly touch on a few of the tips. He says, make it invisible, reduce exposure.
Okay, so hide all the sugary foods.
Yes. That's
Beg my husband to quit bringing home Little Debbie's every time he goes to the store.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I was trying to think, how am I going to explain breaking a bad habit, make it invisible? But Joy's absolutely right. If there's something that you do that's a bad habit,
eating too much sugar.
Like she said, eating too much sugar, that's one of my biggest downfalls. So yeah, if you can't see it, and it says reduce exposure, naturally, if you've got a tub of chocolate chip, ooey gooey chocolate chip cookies sitting next to you, of course you want to reach over and grab one.
Yes,
but if they're,
especially if they're
it's just as simple as, are they within reach or are they not? Okay, make it unattractive. Reframe your mindset and highlight the benefits of
cover those cookies with sauerkraut.
or carrots.
Put carrot shavings on them.
I love that. Reframe your mindset and highlight the benefits of avoiding your bad habits. Well, I don't know about that one. Okay, it says make it difficult. Yeah, put the chocolate chip cookies in on top of my drawer once again.
a ladder to get to them.
Joy's having issues with
Or-
she has a new dryer and she literally has to stand on a step ladder.
Yes,
to get to her.
it's stacked on top of a washing machine.
But it's funny.
But anyway,
you say
yeah,
that
make
because
it difficult.
okay, so I sit at my desk at work. I have a guilty pleasure at work. I keep chocolate in my top drawer. Well, I think about this all the time. I think, okay, quit bringing it to work. Only bring like 2, and then put them in the cabinet in the kitchen where I work.
We have to walk.
I have to walk and get them. At least do something to make it.
Yeah, put the celery in your drawer and put the chocolate in the kitchen. Right. Oh wait, you need
to get unsatisfying. Is the last thing. Okay, so every time I reach in for chocolate, I need to have a mousetrap sitting there. That'll be unsatisfying.
Ew, yeah, something gross sitting there.
Yeah, we're and obviously we're just kind of kidding around. But if you read the book, of course he goes into great depth on each of these points and tells you how to do it, and it's all very simplistic and it's all very doable. All right, Joy. Did you have any part of the book that you remember that was interesting to you or helpful to you?
But just the overall message did hit home with me. It did resonate with me that even though it may seem inconsequential or not really worthwhile at the time, even like I said, even just doing Duolingo 5 minutes a day, no matter what it is, if it's a healthy, good habit, as long as you're consistent and you build up that habit and you do it over time, it's going to reap big dividends.
Yeah.
And I believe that, whether it's you're learning a language or exercise or keeping your house clean, his advice can apply to any area of your life. And that's why I think it's been such a big seller, because it is helpful. And if you do follow the principles in the book, I do think you follow those little atomic habits, those little bitty baby steps, that they can result in big changes.
Yeah, and I like the way his book is laid out. Every single chapter, he starts out with a really interesting story, and the story...
There's always a good anecdote to tie into what he's about to say.
Yes, it always correlates to what he's getting ready to tell you, and all the stories are really interesting. So there's only one other book that actually I feel like I can compare to this book, and it was How to Simplify Your Life. And I read that years and years ago, and to this day, I always look at that book as it was kind of one of those books that kind of made me have this epiphany, like this aha moment of my life was way more complicated than what it had to be. And it was just kind of one of those books that kind of changed my way of thinking about life in general. And this book is kind of that way too, as far as habits are concerned. And I gotta tell you, you know how the Audible has the bookmark feature? I was bookmarking every time I turned around in this book. I was bookmarking stuff. And so that's one of the reasons I bought the hard copy, was because, well, for one thing, he has graphs and things in here that are very visual. You have to look at visually. And this is just one of those books, I kind of look at it as a workbook, and I'm going to probably keep it out until I get into the habit of using a lot of these ideas that he has, until I get really familiar. I actually want to read the book again, and I want to become very familiar with the whole mindset behind each of these.
Because I listened to the book, there's so much stuff I don't remember, but Angie was kind enough to buy me my own copy, and I do plan on reading the hard copy. But one thing that did stand out to me that I do remember is he had these such practical advice, and I don't remember the exact advice, but I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. Let's say I want to exercise every day. Instead of just saying, I'm going to exercise for 30 minutes a day, his advice is you have to have concrete, pre-made steps that you're going to do. In other words, when I get home from work and I put my keys down, I will change clothes. I will go and get out of my work clothes and put on my work.
And have that stuff already set.
Yes, I will have my work clothes set out. I will go change. I mean, it's very concrete. As soon as I put my keys down, I will walk to my bedroom. I will get my workout clothes on that I have set out the night before. I mean, it's step by step by step. And that really hit home with me, because how many times have I said, okay, I'm going to exercise for 20 minutes today. I'm going to exercise for just 30 minutes a day. But I don't have a concrete plan. And because of that, I'll get home and go, oh, well, I'll do it later. Oh, I'll do it later. Then something comes up and it never happens. So you have to have concrete.
Yes, you have to have steps
in
place.
A, B, C, yes. 1, 2, 3. When I do this, I will do that. Is what I got a lot out of that.
He even cuts it down that specific. He even says in his book, when I do A, then I will do B, then I will do C. He's like, you have to have it planned out step
Right,
by
and
step.
it's so simple, and it's so it's such common sense, but
So basic.
it's so basic. But I've never thought, okay, yes, I'm going to exercise 30 minutes, but I never thought about exactly what's going to happen before
And he
I
even
do
used
that.
he even used in the book as an example. He said a lot of people like they'll join a gym, but if the gym is literally not on your way home, he said because it's not easy, he says people tend to not go. And
Right.
that was another example of making it easy.
Right.
Okay, so I wanted to write down like 20 things that was helpful to me in the book, but instead I just wrote down like 3 or 4. What really helped me was one thing he mentioned was it's called the plateau of latent potential. He says when you feel like you spent a lot of time and effort but you're not seeing any progress. Okay, how many of us have done that on diet, whether it's dieting, exercise, or maybe trying to learn a language, whatever it might be. So he says when you feel like you've spent a lot of time and effort but aren't seeing any progress, he says just because you haven't seen the results doesn't mean you're not making progress. He says your work is being stored until you cross a critical threshold, and this requires patience. So, what he was saying was, he said, it's just like an ice cube. He said, you can sit there and watch an ice cube and watch it and watch it. He said, but as long as it's at 32 degrees, it's going to stay in that same state. He said, but the minute it finally hits that state where it like the 33 degrees when it starts to melt, he said but sometimes because you're not seeing something doesn't mean that you're
It's
not
not
making
happening.
progress.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I forgot about that. I love that. Just because you're not seeing progress doesn't mean it's not happening.
And he says sometimes it just takes a lot longer, but he said once it starts happening, it'll happen quickly. You'll start seeing stuff more quickly. All right. He says when you start a new habit, start small with the 2-minute rule. Any new habit should not take more than 2 minutes to do. And I thought that was good because you start out small. And he says habits form based on frequency and not time.
Yeah, I love that.
Can you kind of explain what he means by that?
No, I need you to. I understand what he's saying, but I'm not sure how I would explain it.
Yeah, so what he's saying is like you're trying to build a habit, and you might say, okay, well, I've done it I've been working on this habit for 6 months now, but his point is, okay, if you've only done it 3 or 4 times per month, it's not going to help you. But let's just say you've done it multiple times through multiple weeks. It's more about the frequency.
It's more about repetition.
It's more about frequency and repetition. Okay. And then he says, and this is one of my favorite things he says in the book. He says, having a bad day in your habit routine is worse than you might think. Never put up a 0, even if it means just doing a couple of squats and a push-up. He says, do something. So that has really helped me because
put up a
0. So there's been days like I know it's my day to work out because I have certain days I like to work out. And there's days I'm like, I just don't feel like doing it. But he says it's way better to do something. He said even if you just do a couple push-ups, and he said because when you don't do something, and he explains it in depth why this is so important. He says you go backwards so much further than if you just do something.
Right.
Okay, I wish we could spend more time on this. But the book is just very in depth. It's very, very insightful. You will learn so much from this book. So, Joy, how many tiny habits do you give this book?
I give it 4 tiny habits.
Okay, I think I'll give it 4 too. And would you recommend this book to others, and if so, to who?
Yeah, absolutely. If you have a lot of bad habits like I do, if you're not disciplined, if nothing else, it motivates you to want to be.
Exactly.
It makes you want to form good habits, and it gives you the tools to do them.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and wrap this thing up. And one thing I didn't mention was that he does have tons of scientific data. So this isn't just his opinions or his, he's literally got all kinds of science to back his up.
To me, that was one of the negatives. I know he had to do it to build credibility and to show the science behind it, but I just wanted to get to the points. I believe you. There's scientific data, but did you feel like there was maybe a lot of information?
Was, but I thought it was interesting, and it's the fact that so much of this is based on like studies and lots, just studying different people, especially people's psyche. Because to me, that part was interesting to me. He talks a lot through the book about why we do the things we do. And here's just a just a couple of chapters we didn't talk about, but I thought were interesting and helpful. So one chapter he says motivation is overrated. He says environment often matters more. So
That made me stop and think. Let me read that again.
Yeah.
Motivation is overrated. Environment often matters more. You want
Yeah.
to explain that one?
He's talking about how sometimes our environment plays a much bigger role on our habits than whether we're motivated or not. You know, let's just like a drug. Let's just take someone who's addicted to drugs. If you can be motivated like crazy to quit drugs, but if you're in a house full of drug users, that's not going to help. I think that's what he's kind of getting at there.
Okay.
So then he had a chapter called "The Secret to Self-Control." Joy had just said earlier. She said, "I need to go back and read that."
Yeah, I
chapter.
need to reread that chapter.
Yeah. He talks about the role of family and friends in shaping your habits, and that plays a big part. How one chapter was how to stop procrastinating using the 2-minute
Oh, I need to
rule.
reread that
Me
one
too. Another chapter was called "The Truth About Talent."
I love that chapter
Me too.
because yes, you have to have a little talent, obviously. I don't think a 5'2" guy is going to be a professional basketball player anytime soon.
Yeah, his chapter
Some of
was
it,
good.
some of it, yes, you have to have a little talent. You have to, but so much of it
Yeah.
is about work ethic and habits.
He talked about your habits can play a huge role whether you have the talent or not. Like he even says some of the most talented athletes in the world, it wasn't so much that they were talented, it was that they were disciplined in their habits. But the other thing on the flip side of that was he says there might be something that you're wanting to accomplish in your life, but just practically speaking, you're not built for that, or you were not endowed with certain traits that you need. Like he talks about Michael Phelps, the Olympic swimmer.
Yes, how
He
it's
talks
built
about how
physically.
he is physically built to be an Olympic swimmer.
See, that's one of my pet peeves is when I hear, just work for it and you can be anything you want.
Right.
You can do anything you want. I don't agree with that. Yes, that goes a long way, your work ethic and your habits, but like I said, it's going to be hard to be a pro basketball player when you're 5'2". You know what I mean?
Exactly.
There are just some things you can't do. So you have to pick something that's realistic and then
Yes.
work hard for
Yes,
it.
and that's part of his point was so there's two sides of that coin. On the one side, there's just certain things in life we weren't meant to do.
Right.
Because, we just weren't.
Does that bug you when you hear that?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Yeah, I
I
agree
was
with
just
you.
curious if I'm the only one that
No,
bugs.
I agree with you. It's like you tell a little
Well,
kid,
girls
like,
can do anything guys can do. No, they can't.
yeah. Oh, we better
I
not go on
know.
that.
It's just, and it's just not mental. It's physical.
Right.
We're just not as big and strong, and men can't have babies. I mean, it's just common sense, you know.
Exactly. Yeah,
That's another thing that drives me insane.
And that's what I love about this guy. Everything in this book is so practical. It's black and white. It's, hey, you can't be a professional swimmer because you're not built like Michael Phelps. And then on the
Right.
other side, though, he's so encouraging because he says there's so many people that they are where they are, and it's not because they have this exceptional talent. It's because they work hard at their habits.
Right.
So he's very
So it is encouraging.
it's encouraging, yes. Yeah. So, all right. So I think, what do we got coming up, Joy? We're going to do a book about Elle
So I read
McPherson,
a book or listened to a book about Elle McPherson. I told Angie not to read it. I'll just tell you that up front. And I'm just going to go through why I don't want her to read it.
Okay, that's going to be fun.
Yeah.
That's probably going to be our next podcast.
Yeah, so I'm going to tell you there are positives to the book, but I'm just going to save you some time. And I think once I go over the book and kind of go over the gist of the book, you'll thank me for having saved you the pain.
Okay, is the name of the book Elle?
The name of the book is Elle.
It's about the supermodel Elle
It's about the
McPherson.
supermodel Elle McPherson. It's not all going to be negative, but I think once I read a couple of excerpts, you're going to be like, oh, okay.
All right.
You're going to thank me.
Okay. All right, guys. Well, once again, we do truly appreciate you joining us. It's always an honor to know that people are out there listening to us, when you could be spending your time just about anywhere else. So thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time on
Twin Talk.